What's going on YouTube? Bendable Straws back with another Envoy exclusive video for you guys today, and we're going to be going over the A-Force T4 priority. Now, as you guys can see here, the Absolute A-Force and A-Force are interchangeable, but there is a little bit of a difference with, like, say you want to use an Absolute A-Force member on regular A-Force. That is going to count as A-Force for A-Force. But if you try to use an A-Force character on Absolute A-Force, they won't get much benefit because a lot of the Absolute A-Force tags are very Absolute A-Force tag specific. So say any of these 5 members here at the top you want to plug and play for Captain Marvel, the one that's usually taken out, of course, you can do so. Or say you want to use Nico Minoru on the Absolute A-Force for the revives, the traumas, the this and that, you know what I mean? You guys can absolutely do that. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and start the T4 recommendations for the Absolute A-Force. For Kahhori, we did also, I want to mention at the beginning of this video that all of these 3 characters right here, Kahhori, Miss Marvel Classic, and Medusa, are all 3-star unlocks, so they will be 100 shard unlocks. So without further ado, let's dive right into Kahhori's kit. It is going to be Sky Blast, and the T4 recommendation for this one, she pretty much gets 50% piercing to primary target, apply 1 charge up to a maximum of 3 to the most chargeable Absolute A-Force ally with the most health. And unfortunately, we're not able to see more of that, but pretty much it is a go for her basic. She's pretty much going to be a 7775. For her special, Step of the Wind, clear all barrier on all enemies, 50% piercing to all enemies, and if the enemy does not have any positive effects, apply trauma for 2 turns to that character. We're going to move over to Kahhori's ultimate, Ancient Power. You're going to be doing 100% piercing to primary and adjacent targets, applying trauma for 2 turns, and 50% speed bar, so that is a guaranteed T4. Moving on to Kahhori's passive, her T4 will be fill speed bar by 100%, 150% piercing, and in war, if this character has 4 or more Absolute A-Force allies, the enemies with exposed cannot fill speed bar for themselves or allies. This does not apply for speed bar gained through normal means. So this has been Kahhori. We still do not have their uniques, unfortunately, and I'm recommending Striker for Kahhori. Moving on to Miss Marvel Classic. Miss Marvel Classic gained the Kree tag in the video that we posted yesterday about her. She is a 3-star unlock. The basic is Classic Beatdown. I guess if you want to T4 this for a little bit extra damage, you're not necessarily going to be basicking with her until about turn 3, but I feel like the match is pretty much going to be over by that time. Let's move over to the special. So the special is 100% damage to primary and adjacent targets for a total of 350% damage, and apply to evade. Since you're going to be ulting first, it really all depends on how long the match is going to be, essentially. So I would say it's medium priority, definitely way better than the basic. As far as it goes for the ultimate T4 is Close the Distance. Level 7 is 150% damage to primary target. It brings it up to 550% damage. You'll be applying Safeguard to self and all Absolute A-Force allies. That one is absolutely necessary. Moving over to the passive Air Superiority. The T4 is In War on enemy death. Apply Safeguard and immunity to self and all Absolute A-Force allies. That's a pretty good T4 there, because the level 4, the T3 in war, when this character, an Absolute A-Force ally, drops below 40% health, clear disrupted, and apply Safeguard to that character. So you pretty much just do it 100% all the time when enemy death occurs. These are Bibles of kits. It's a lot to take in, let me tell you. But right now we're really just going over the T4 priorities. So that has been Miss Marvel Classic. All right, so let's do Medusa. Medusa is going to be a 100 shard unlock, so a 3-star unlock. And she did gain the Cosmic tag. In the previous video, she was listed as Global. That is no longer the case. She is Cosmic. Her basic is Split Ends. You pretty much just gain piercing for the basic, so it's very low priority. Not necessarily sure how often she's going to be basicing. Like I said, the match is pretty much going to be over the second they do their ultimates and specials. Like outside looking in, of course. The special is Bob and Weave. 150% piercing to primary target, 20% crit damage, and if Black Bolt is an ally or this character has 3 or more absolute A-Force allies, this attack gains 60% crit chance for this attack, and characters killed by this attack cannot be revived. The ultimate is Conditioned for Battle. 100% piercing to primary and secondary targets, 20% crit damage. If Black Bolt is an ally or if this character has 3 or more absolute A-Force allies, this attack gains 60% crit damage, and characters killed by this attack cannot be revived. So she's like a much better Black Bolt. She does have a very crazy damage stab. I believe her damage at 7/7 is 520k. The Inhumans Queen is the passive, and in war reduce enemy resistance by 80%. That is very important. And in war gain 10% speed for self and all absolute A-Force allies. This is sort of what I meant by, say you want to put a Nico Maruno in here. She won't benefit from that speed because she's not an absolute A-Force ally. But if you were to put a Medusa on A-Force, she would get the benefits from A-Force. And again, her damage is 467k as a raider. I believe we had her listed as a striker, and that brought her up to 520k. Moving on to Ironheart. This one left my heart broken, no pun intended. The basic T4 is 60% damage to primary target for a total of 320% damage. The special is 20% damage to primary and adjacent targets and reduce the speed bar by an extra 5% for a total of 20%. The ultimate is 30% damage to all enemies, and in war, if this character has 3 or more absolute A-Force allies, this attack deals 300% damage to all enemies. Essentially, it's just if you want the extra damage, because that's going to be 650% damage altogether. The passive, I really don't like. I can't believe they didn't do anything with this passive. The passive is Prodigy. The T4 is 5% max health for self and all power armor allies. 10% resistance for self and all tech allies. 5% armor for self and all power armor allies. Nobody on this team is tech or power armor except her. That's garbage! I can't believe that they didn't put any tender loving care into this passive. The T3 is on spawn, apply defense up for 2 turns to self and all power armor and absolute A-Force allies. And that seems T4 worthy instead of this T4 here. I know a lot of players usually bring up their T4s at the very beginning, thinking that everything is going to be necessary because the passives usually are. But this is a very big warning. Do not T4 your Ironheart's passive. This left a really bad taste in my mouth. Moving on, let's go over to Wasp. Wasp's basic T4 is going to be 40% damage to primary and secondary targets for a total of 300% damage and a 250% damage. The special is going to be blasters, 30% damage on all attacks and bonus attack 3 times. So usually how you would do your special, it would be like a pew, pew, and then, but now she's going to do it 3 times. And I believe she's going to have enough focus to apply stun to the primary target. I wish it was always apply stun. I think that would have been a little bit more, taken a little bit more, way better. I'm trying to get it out here. The ultimate is Flight of the Wasp. 50% damage to all targets in war. If this character has 3 or more absolute A-Force allies, this attack deals an extra 200% damage. So this one essentially is almost necessary because Wasp isn't going to be the one that you take out of this team. It's going to be Ironheart. If you want to sub in a Nico Maruno or a Photon or a Spider Woman, you know, it's just gonna make a lot more sense. So that would bring it up to a total of 400% damage to all enemies for a grand total of 780% damage to all enemies. This one is gonna hurt a lot. The passive is Shrink. In war, on spawn, gain 3 charged and 5% dodge chance. This one is a little important because it brings it up to gain 25% dodge chance and then gain an additional 10% dodge chance per charged. Now, if you look over here in war, on spawn, gain 3 charge instead and gain an additional 25% dodge chance per charge instead. So that is 75% charged on top of her 25% dodge chance. So if she is 3 charged on spawn, she's going to be dodging 100% of the time. It is going to be a pain to kill this Wasp. It's gonna be a little tricky. You definitely want to bring what am I trying to say here? Unavoidable attacks to this Wasp. Holy moly. Thank you so much for watching this video, everybody. If you guys are liking the content, be sure to subscribe. It's free for you and helps out the channel tremendously. And as always, I will catch all of you in the next one.